There's a very specific kind of film that falls through the cracks of the genre. Not bad enough to be forgotten, not famous enough to be remembered, just quietly excellent. Sitting in a gap between the blockbusters everyone knows and the obscurities only die-hard fans have found. Today, 15 sci-fi films that most people genuinely have no idea exist. A film so strange and so original that its director spent years afterward being asked why more people haven't heard of it. A found-footage time travel film about a group of teenagers who build a machine in a garage that's far smarter than its low-key release ever suggested. And a film starring Mahershala Ali, playing two versions of himself. One of the most devastating science fiction films of the last decade that almost nobody has seen. 15 films. Ranked. Let's go. Number 15. Project ALMANAC. Let me open with something accessible. A found-footage time travel thriller that got buried by its own marketing.
What the hell is that?
Here we go, Project ALMANAC, temporal relocation prototype?
What does that mean? It means time travel.
A group of high school friends discovers blueprints left behind by one of their fathers, a scientist who died under mysterious circumstances, for a working time machine. They built it in a garage, and like every group of teenagers ever given access to something this powerful, immediately start using it for exactly the wrong reasons. Better grades, romantic do-overs, concert tickets, before the consequences of altering the timeline start compounding in ways they can't undo. Dean Israelite directed this, and what makes Project ALMANAC better than its reputation is the way it handles the mechanics of time travel with real internal consistency. Every change the characters make ripples forward in ways that are logical and increasingly dangerous, building to a genuinely tense final act. The film underperformed at the box office and was largely dismissed on release. Revisited years later, audiences have found considerably more to appreciate in its central premise. A genuinely well-constructed teen time travel thriller that deserved better than it got. Number 14. Dark Skies.
Had a bad dream.
Sammy, did you do this?
The Barretts are an ordinary suburban family under financial pressure, until strange things start happening in their home. Objects rearranged, photographs missing, their youngest son sleepwalking to the window at night, drawn towards something outside that only he seems to sense. Scott Stewart wrote and directed Dark Skies, and what elevates it above a standard haunted house premise is the specific slow reveal of what's actually happening. This isn't a ghost story, and the film patiently withholds that reversal long enough to build genuine dread before recontextualizing every strange occurrence that came before. Keri Russell and Josh Hamilton play the parents with a controlled, mounting desperation, as institutions that should help them, police, doctors, child services, have no framework for what's actually targeting their family. J.K. Simmons appears in a pivotal supporting role, as a man who has encountered this phenomenon before, and has spent years trying to warn people who don't want to listen. What Dark Skies does well is atmosphere over jump scares. The dread accumulates through small, specific wrongness rather than shock cuts, and the film's final act commits fully to an ending that refuses easy comfort. A genuinely effective alien sci-fi thriller that got lost in a crowded release year and deserves rediscovery. Number 13. Anna.
Should feel like it's happening for the first time. But it'll be different from the original event. Our unconscious mind will know that you've been there before. Also, me being there makes it different.
Mark Strong plays a memory detective, one of a small number of people with the psychic ability to enter someone else's memories and observe them from the inside. Hired to determine whether a brilliant, troubled 16-year-old girl named Anna, played by Taissa Farmiga, is a manipulative sociopath or a genuine victim of trauma. Jorge Dorado directed this as his debut feature, drawing explicit inspiration from Hitchcock's Vertigo and Chinatown, and what he built is a genre-blending psychological thriller that uses its science fiction premise almost entirely in service of a slow-burn mystery about trust, memory, and manipulation. The film is deliberately dense and elliptical, withholding easy answers about who is actually the more dangerous person in the room, the detective, damaged by his own past trauma, or the girl whose memories keep shifting the ground beneath him. Mark Strong, more often cast as a villain or supporting player, gets a rare leading role here and brings a genuine world weariness to a man who isn't entirely sure he can trust his own instincts anymore. A flawed but genuinely interesting psychological sci-fi thriller that barely registered on release. Number 12, City of Ember.
Time to support life. What would count down to nothing? It sounds like doomsday.
Deep underground, in a city built to shelter the last of humanity for exactly 200 years, while the surface world recovers from an unspecified catastrophe, the lights are failing. The instructions for how to leave, sealed in a box meant to open automatically after 2 centuries, have been lost. And 2 teenagers, Lena and Dune, are the only ones who realize the city is running out of time. Gil Kenan directed City of Ember from Jean Dupros's novel, and what he builds is a genuinely inventive piece of production design. An entire underground civilization, generations removed from any memory of the sky, rendered with a lived-in, steampunk-adjacent aesthetic that gives the film's central mystery real texture. Saoirse Ronan, in one of her earliest major roles, plays Lena with the same intelligence and gravity she'd bring to considerably more acclaimed films in the years that followed. Bill Murray plays the city's mayor with a specific, self-serving comic menace, hoarding supplies while the city around him runs out of light. The film underperformed at the box office and effectively killed any planned sequels, despite strong reviews and a genuinely striking visual identity. A gorgeous adventure sci-fi with a visual identity considerably more distinctive than most YA adaptations of its era. Number 11, Criminal.
You're an intelligence officer in the CIA. I need you to remember.
Remember what?
A CIA operative is killed before he can reveal the location of a hacker capable of controlling every nuclear arsenal in the world. With time running out, the agency turns to an experimental procedure, transplanting the dead agent's memories into the brain of a violent, remorseless convict who has nothing left to lose. Ariel Vromen directed Criminal, and the premise gives Kevin Costner an unusually physical, unusually dangerous role. A man whose own violent nature is slowly, uncomfortably overwritten by memories and instincts that aren't his. The ensemble around Costner is genuinely stacked. Gary Oldman, Tommy Lee Jones, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot all appear in supporting roles, giving a modestly budgeted action thriller a cast that feels far bigger than its box office performance would suggest. What elevates Criminal above standard action thriller mechanics is Costner's performance, playing a man who begins the film as pure violence and ends it discovering, through borrowed memories he didn't ask for, capacities for love and loyalty he never knew he had. A star-studded action sci-fi thriller that came and went with surprisingly little fanfare given its cast. Number 10, JULES.
Oh, good Christ, what is that?
You remember the spaceship? This is the little man who came out of it.
He's gotta be a secret. Don't tell anybody.
Ben Kingsley plays Milton, an elderly man in small-town Pennsylvania, increasingly forgetful, mostly ignored by his adult children, whose evening routine is interrupted when a UFO crash lands in his backyard, and a small, silent, injured alien, whom he names Jules, takes up residence in his home. Marc Turtletaub directed this, and what makes JULES genuinely lovely is its complete lack of interest in alien invasion spectacle. Milton doesn't report the crash. He simply starts caring for Jules, feeding him apples, letting him sleep in the garage, and eventually 2 of Milton's equally overlooked, equally elderly neighbors discover the secret and become co-conspirators rather than witnesses to a threat. What makes JULES quietly extraordinary is its total commitment to smallness. No government conspiracy, no military response, just an old man, his new alien friend, and 2 neighbors who haven't had anyone to care for in years, finding, unexpectedly, something to care for together. Kingsley's performance is warm, funny, and genuinely moving, a man rediscovering purpose in the most unexpected possible circumstances. A gentle, funny, ultimately moving film about loneliness and unexpected connection. One of the most purely warm-hearted science fiction films in years. Number 9, Arc. Tony Elliott wrote and directed this, and it might be the tightest, most efficiently constructed time loop film ever made. A film that takes the Groundhog Day structure and strips it down to 90 minutes of pure mechanical tension.
What do you want?
The Ark. It's what they're after.
what to do.
You don't know what you're doing.
Renton wakes up in his bedroom. Someone is breaking into his house. He gets up to check. The intruders find him. And then he wakes up again. Same bedroom, same break-in, slightly different details. The film's entire structure is built around a machine called the Ark, a perpetual energy device Renton has invented that has trapped him and his partner Hannah in a repeating loop of the same violent night. Here's what makes ARQ extraordinary. Every single loop changes something. New information, new alliances, new understanding of who the intruders actually are and what they actually want, which turns out to be considerably more complicated than a simple robbery. The film never repeats a loop in the way you expect, constantly recontextualizing the stakes with each new pass. Made on a tiny budget, confined almost entirely to a single house, and constructed with the precision of a Rubik's Cube being solved in real time. Every detail introduced in the first loop pays off by the last one. Underseen, tightly wound. One of the smartest science fiction thrillers Netflix has ever produced. Number 8. Attack the Block. Right. Gear change. Because you deserve something that's just enormously fun.
Well done, lads. You discovered a species hitherto unknown to science. He kicked his head in.
Yo, check it. More what? Them things. Lovely fireworks.
A group of teenagers on a South London council estate, more used to committing petty crime than saving the world, end up defending their block from an alien invasion after creatures start falling from the sky. Creatures that happen to be tracking one specific group of kids for a very specific reason. Joe Cornish wrote and directed this, and it launched John Boyega's career years before Star Wars. His performance as Moses, the reluctant leader of the group, carries genuine weight underneath the film's fast, funny, low-budget monster movie energy. Here's what makes Attack the Block one of the smartest genre films of its decade. It uses the alien invasion as a lens to examine exactly the kind of estate, the kind of kids, and the kind of community that mainstream British media usually only shows you as a threat, and flips the entire framing so that these are the heroes, defending their home with nothing but bike locks, fireworks, and sheer nerve. The creature design, deliberately near black, with glow-in-the-dark teeth as its only visible feature, is genuinely inventive on what was clearly a tiny budget. Fast, funny, and one of the finest alien invasion films of its decade. Nowhere near enough people have seen it. Number 7. Selfless. A dying billionaire pays an enormous sum of money for a procedure called shedding, transferring his consciousness into a younger, genetically engineered body grown specifically to house him.
We offer humanity's greatest minds more time to fulfill their potential. Designed to offer you the very best of the human experience.
Ben Kingsley plays the billionaire briefly. Ryan Reynolds plays the body he wakes up inside. What starts as a fairly standard body swap thriller premise takes a considerably darker turn when the new body starts having flashes of memories that aren't his own. Memories belonging to whoever the body actually originally belonged to. Tarsem Singh directed this, and what makes Selfless more interesting than its studio thriller marketing suggested is its willingness to follow the ethical implications of its premise into genuinely dark territory, questioning what a company would actually be willing to do to source vessels for consciousness transfer, and what it costs the people whose bodies are taken. Reynolds gives a controlled, increasingly haunted performance as a man discovering that his second chance was built on something he can't simply ignore. The film received mixed reviews and underperformed at the box office, largely dismissed as a slicker face-off retread, but the moral weight it eventually takes on separates it from a pure action premise. A smarter film than its marketing led on. Worth the rediscovery. Number 6. Spring.
You probably lie a lot.
I've actually never lied to you. Even I'm a mystery to myself.
A young American man, grieving his mother's death and running from a fight he didn't mean to start, flees to Italy on impulse and falls for a woman he meets in a small coastal town. She is beautiful, evasive about her past, and, as he slowly discovers something strange, something that you find out when you see the movie. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead wrote and directed this, and what they built is a genre hybrid unlike almost anything else on this list, A film that begins as a romantic drama becomes something much stranger by its midpoint and somehow makes both halves feel completely earned. Lou Taylor Pucci and Nadia Hilker carry the film's central relationship with a chemistry that makes you invest fully in a romance the film is simultaneously building towards something genuinely strange and unsettling. The Italian countryside setting gives the film a sun-drenched, unhurried quality that makes the horror, when it surfaces, land with more force for the contrast. What Spring is actually asking is whether love can survive learning something genuinely monstrous about the person you love, and whether the monstrous thing, once understood, might not be monstrous at all. Made for almost nothing. One of the most quietly beautiful and strange films in years. Number 5. The Vast of Night. This film was made for less than $1 million by a first-time director, and it is one of the most confident pieces of filmmaking I have ever seen from someone making their debut.
They've come here before. They've liked this place. They always have.
Set in 1950s New Mexico, on the night of a huge high school basketball game that's emptied the whole town, the film follows a radio DJ and a switchboard operator who start picking up a strange sound on the airwaves. A sound that shouldn't exist. And that seems to be getting closer. Patterson shoots this film like it's an episode of The Twilight Zone that was somehow recovered from a time capsule. The cinematography, long, unbroken takes, low light, the world shrinking down to voices in the dark, creates a sense of dread that has nothing to do with special effects and everything to do with patience. There is a sequence near the middle of this film, a single static shot of a radio studio while a voice speaks, that is one of the finest pieces of atmosphere in recent American science fiction. A genuine festival darling that most people have never seen. Watch it at night. Alone. With the lights off. Number 4. Robot and Frank. After all of that tension, this is one of the warmest, funniest, and most quietly devastating films on this list.
Can I help you find anything?
Where is the librarian?
Hey, Frank.
Hey there.
What'll it be? The usual?
I'd be more interested in getting your phone number.
Frank Langella plays Frank, a retired cat burglar in the early stages of dementia, living alone, resistant to help, whose exasperated son buys him a robot caretaker designed to manage his health, his meals, and his medication. Frank hates the robot, right up until he realizes it doesn't have any ethical programming preventing it from helping him plan one last heist. Jake Schreier directed Robot and Frank Frank Langella gives a performance of remarkable specificity, a man whose sharpness and criminal instincts remain completely intact even as his memory begins to fail him, finding, in a machine built to monitor his decline, an unexpected partner for one last heist. What makes the film extraordinary is how it uses its science fiction premise to say something genuinely moving about memory, dignity, and companionship in old age. The robot becomes, without ever being sentimentalized, the one relationship in Frank's life that asks nothing of him except honesty about his own capabilities. Susan Sarandon plays a librarian Frank has feelings for, and the film's final act reveals information about Frank's relationship with his own memory that recontextualizes everything that came before with genuine emotional force. A small, perfectly constructed film about aging, dignity, and unlikely friendship. Deserves a vastly larger audience than it found. Number 3. Swan Song.
I still can't believe it. You're gonna fall in love with a new little person again.
Mahershala Ali plays Cameron, a man dying of a terminal illness who is offered an extraordinary and ethically fraught option. A perfect clone of himself, implanted with all of his memories, can be created to seamlessly replace him, sparing his wife and young son the grief of losing him and never knowing the difference. Benjamin Cleary wrote and directed this, and Ali plays both versions of Cameron simultaneously, the dying original and the healthy replacement, in a dual performance built on almost imperceptible differences rather than obvious contrasts. Here's what makes Swan Song one of the most devastating science fiction films of the decade. It refuses to make the decision easy. The film sits patiently and painfully inside Cameron's process of teaching his own replacement everything about his life. His mannerisms, his relationships, his private jokes with his son. essentially training a duplicate to take over the role of husband and father while he is still alive to watch it happen. Naomi Harris plays Cameron's wife, present throughout the film without ever knowing the choice being made around her, which gives every scene between them a quiet, unbearable dramatic irony. Ali's dual performance is the reason this works completely. Two men, identical in every visible way, distinguished entirely by the specific weight of what each of them is carrying. One of the most emotionally overwhelming pieces of science fiction about mortality and love ever made, vastly underseen relative to how completely it earns every tear it extracts. Number 2. The One I Love. Charlie McDowell directed this as his debut, and what he built is one of the smartest, most original relationship dramas disguised as science fiction ever made.
So since we're just kind of like dipping our toes in here, I think maybe we shouldn't spend too much time in there the first go around.
Okay. How's a 15-minute zone?
Yeah, I think that's good.
I want you to do something for me. Don't look this one up. Don't watch the trailer. Don't read the Wikipedia page. Just go in knowing this. A couple whose marriage is failing goes to a secluded retreat recommended by their therapist. Something in the guest house changes everything. That's all. That's genuinely all I'm giving you. Because the thing this film does, about 20 minutes in, is so quietly, perfectly executed that I'd feel like a genuine villain spoiling it. What I can tell you, Mark Duplass and Elizabeth Moss are both extraordinary. The film runs 91 minutes. Every single minute is earning something, and underneath the sci-fi conceits and the tonal juggling act, there is a film about something very real, about the gap between the person we fell in love with and the person standing in front of us now, about whether those two things are even reconcilable. One of those films where the twist isn't the point. The point is what the twist reveals. Go tonight, completely cold! Number 1. Sorry to bother you.
And what I'm doing right now won't even matter.
Oh, baby, it will always matter.
Thought you said you fixed that.
Get a room! I got a room, mother...
Cassius Green takes a job at a telemarketing company in Oakland, struggling to make his first sale. An older colleague gives him a piece of advice. Use your white voice. He does. His sales skyrocket. He gets promoted to the top floor, where the real money is made, and where the actual business turns out to be something considerably stranger and darker than cold calling. Lakeith Stanfield plays Cassius, in a film written and directed by Boots Riley, the musician and activist making his feature debut. And Sorry to Bother You is one of the most genuinely original American films of the last decade, a satire about capitalism, race, code switching, and labor exploitation that starts grounded and recognizable and ends up somewhere so audacious that describing it risks ruining one of the great third-act swings in modern cinema. Lakeith anchors the entire film with a performance that has to sell an escalating series of increasingly absurd realities, while keeping Cassius's central moral crisis completely grounded and human. Tessa Thompson, Armie Hammer, and Stephen Yeun support. 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, won the Independent Spirit Award for Best First Feature. It is funny. It is genuinely disturbing. It refuses to be one single thing for more than a few minutes at a time. That refusal, that complete confidence in its own strangeness, is exactly why it's number 1. That's the end of our today's list. 15 films, all of them genuinely excellent. All of them criminally unknown. Now, I really want to hear from you. How many of these had you actually heard of before? Which ones have you already watched? And is there a hidden gem you think absolutely deserved a spot on this list? Let me know in the comments. If you're looking for even more underrated recommendations, check out my other video, 15 sci-fi movies you've probably never heard of. If you enjoyed this list, I'm pretty sure you'll love that one too. And if you genuinely like the video, please like, subscribe, and swipe left on the comments and hype this video. It really helps a small channel like mine grow. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.